The Honorable Chief Justice and Associate Justices of the Supreme Court.
The House will come to order.
The Senate will come to order.
Terminate its municipal court, it must first enter into an agreement with the county for the county to provide court services. For municipalities with less than 400,000 residents, a city or town must pay all costs of operating the municipal court. Such costs may include the salaries of judges and court employees, dockets, books of records, forms, furnishings, and supplies. The municipality must also provide and maintain a suitable place for holding court. For municipalities with more than 400,000 residents, a city must pay for all supplies and furniture necessary for the transaction of municipal court business, except for expenses incidental to the court's concurrent jurisdiction with district court, which expenses must be paid by the county. All other expenses of the municipal court may be authorized by the city council or county commissioners and must be paid by the city or county. House Bill 1365 would provide for courthouse security for district and municipal courts in order to promote safety and security, ensure access to court proceedings, and assist judges in carrying out their duties. Counties will be required to provide security to district courts. Additionally, county legislative authorities will be specifically required to furnish secure courthouses for district courts. All municipalities, regardless of population size, will be required to provide security to municipal courts. Additionally, all municipalities will be required to pay the cost of courthouse security for municipal courts. For municipalities with more than 400,000 residents, the county is expressly required to pay expenses that are incidental to the operation of municipal court because of concurrent jurisdiction with the district court. There is a fiscal note that is available for this bill. And with that, I'll conclude my comments and invite any questions.
Are there any questions? I've got a question that maybe the prime, well, is the prime sponsor here? I assume you're speaking for. Oh, okay. Question for you and whoever gets up to speak on the bill. Is there any kind of a definition of just what's going to be covered under security? Because securities could be quite a range of things, and considering what the cost is.
I have not found any statute, or specifically in this bill, there is no definition for courthouse security, and I did not come across any definition for that.
Okay. All right, with that, let's call up Judge Michael Gilson. Yeah. Oh, Michelle, I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Apologize for that.
That's all right. It's happened a time or two. Good afternoon, Chair Tacko and committee members. My name is Judge Michelle Gelson, and I'm here today representing the District Municipal Court Judges Association and our concern for statewide courthouse security of limited jurisdiction courts. We are asking for legislation to add security for the limited jurisdiction courthouses. We have reached a time where security is an essential function. Yesterday, if you have read the newspaper, you know that 2 innocent women were shot and killed in a Delaware courtroom. 2 weeks ago, an assistant district attorney was shot and killed in Texas while walking to his car outside the courthouse. Less than 1 year ago, Judge Edwards was stabbed in the neck and Deputy Davin was shot in Grays Harbor, Washington, in a courthouse. Each week, there is another incident. These tragedies are not stopping, but are escalating. Last year, the Administrative Office of the Courts conducted a security survey of district and municipal courthouses. In that survey, 56% of judges believe they lack adequate security. One judge stated, "Every day we feel like sitting ducks." 46% of courthouses have had a security incident in the last 5 years. This survey illustrates that security at courthouses varies from facility to facility And Representative Taco, as you were asking the question, what comprises security? What is courthouse security? There is a handout that has been handed out to you. And in that handout, courthouse security, if you can see the pie graph, has the current court security. What we know from this survey is that the security varies from facility to facility. Some courthouses have x-ray machines. Some have metal detectors. Some have officers with guns. Some don't. And some have nothing. There is no minimum standards for courthouse security in Washington State. It's important to remember that people coming to the courthouse are frustrated, they're angry, they're stressed individuals. If courts are to remain the forum for resolving disputes, people who come to the court as jurors, witnesses, attorneys, and staff must feel safe. If our courthouses are not safe and secure, what happens to our society when people stop coming to resolve their issues peacefully? Thank you, and I would be happy to answer any questions at this time.
I guess my question is, what do you expect court security to look like?
Well, I think that's a very important question and one that we've had to discuss. In 2009, there was a task force that came up with standards for courthouse security. And in those standards, you are talking about having a security officer. The best case scenario would be to have a security officer that is at the magnetometer or the screening device when you come into the courthouse, and then having a bailiff in the courtroom. But I think for economics, you're looking at least having somebody that is screening people that come into the courtroom. Just an example, in Thurston County, who does have screeners, they had somebody that came in with a pen gun, is my understanding. And if that screener wouldn't have been there, they wouldn't have taken that off. Justice Madsen, in giving her State of the Court address, stated that there is that the number of, tasers, et cetera, that were coming into courthouses in Spokane County alone is amazing to look at. And if you don't have just those screeners, then those types of items get into your courthouse. You're also looking at panic buttons, and I think what a lot of people don't think of is public and private access. We had a judge in Spokane where their chambers are out in the public hall. So she went back into her chambers. There was a knock on the door. She thought it was one of her colleagues. She opened the door, and it was a very angry defendant that was screaming at her, and another judge had to come to her aid. And so I think that it is an issue that we have to discuss. What would that, at least a bare minimum of courthouse security, look like?
In most courthouses that I've been to, the district court and superior court are in.
That's a lot.
But for good reasons. Thank you. So he knows me better than some. The district court and superior court are in the same building, and so if we do something for superior court, which does have in some places there's security, so there is some sense of security, but aren't some municipal courts held outside of the courthouse in the smaller jurisdictions, like in the city council chambers and?
In rural courts, some are housed in the same facility as your city council or your city hall, et cetera.
So if we're going to do security there, then we're kind of doubling up the cost. I mean, where I'm headed is this is going to be expensive.
It is.
And I'm looking at some of the fiscal note numbers there, and I'm going, well, they were talking about if only half of them did it, it was 3-point-some million. I don't have it up right now. And so, if you're going to truly make all the municipal courts, I mean, we could be talking 8 million.
And it's not only just the municipal courts. I don't mean to add more fire, I guess, to it, but it also is district courts as well, because not all district courts are housed with the Superior Court, so you're not going to be having that Superior Court security. It is very expensive, but at this time, if you're looking every week, somebody. Let me back up. This isn't a question of, most judges don't have a question if it's going to happen. The question is, when is it going to happen? And so if you take, for example, 15 years ago in King County, when they had that horrific gun fire and people killed in King County Courthouse, I think by the next day they had security. In Grays Harbor, there was no security. By the next business day, they have full security. So the unfortunate thing is that we're waiting for an incident to happen, and then we are providing the security. So I think we can find the money. They were able to find the money when those incidents occurred. I just think we need to work together and figure out a solution to this. And my association believes that as well. Luckily, from the city, I'm from the city of Bothell. My executive understands the concerns. They're reading the papers, and then we work together very well on trying to have the best security that we can. But there's other jurisdictions that don't have that relationship.
Okay, are there any other questions? Representative Kochmar.
Thank you very much, Chair Taco. Judge, is it your intention to also include uniformed security officers in all locations, not just the metal detectors or the screeners, but also a uniformed officer?
Well, that would be the hope, Representative Kochmar, that you would have somebody that is armed and in the courthouse.
And we did face this in the city where I am, and the issue then is if you're going to provide a unit, because this would be considered an unfunded mandate for the cities, so if you're going to provide a uniformed police officer, then that is in essence taking one off the streets, and so then you have to try to backfill that position on the street. So a lot of, because when you say provide all security, it's a difficult thing for the cities to have to comply with when they're facing the same budget constraints that everyone else is. So it would be really helpful. I mean, some cities are small and some medium, some are large. And maybe perhaps we could try and tailor it more to fit the municipality. It's kind of a broad brush to say provide all security. That's just my concern.
Yes, and I understand that concern, and what we're just hoping is that we start discussing this issue and hopefully be able to fund this so we don't have an incident happening that like happened in Delaware or in Texas in the last 2 weeks.
Are there any more questions? All right, thank you.
All right, thank you for your time. I appreciate it.
Next up, Josh Weiss.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm Josh Weiss with the Washington State Association of Counties, and I'm here today. Brian Enslow is our staff person that works on public safety issues. He has sick family today, so I'm filling in, and I'm also speaking for Association of Washington Cities, and Candace Bach is their staff person that works these issues, but they have a conference today, so I want you all to be very aware that I am third-string offense here on this issue, but here today very much in opposition to this measure. As I've mentioned to the committee many times before now this session, the counties are your constitutionally established implementation agents, and providing trial courts is something that counties do on behalf of the state. So this issue of security is very much a shared state and local responsibility and a shared question. I also want to be clear that security is something that county commissioners and council members that I represent take very seriously. It's not a question of whether or not we think security is important, whether we want to provide it. It really is a question of having the financial resources to do so. The questions that the committee is asking clearly indicate that you understand this from our perspective. Our resources are limited at a local level, just like yours are at a state level, and we simply can't do everything that we'd like to do. The question about what is the definition of security and the answer really do indicate that there really might not be any ceiling on what we're supposed to be doing here on this issue, which concerns us. Representative Kochmar's question about tailoring the issue to the local jurisdiction. That is what happens at the local level. The jurisdictions are engaged with their courts to provide what is the appropriate level of security. But that is a discussion that has to happen in the reality of having finite resources. I've mentioned several times before, county funding sources aren't diverse. We only have property tax, sales tax, and state shared revenues. Among those revenue sources that we have, we're very limited in how we can spend them. Even given those limitations, about 70% of our current expense funds at the county level are already spent on public safety. So we spend, vast majority of our resources in current expense on these issues. And this number is on the rise. I think the committee may be aware that the courts recently this summer passed a court rule on indigent defense standards, which basically set the standard for the amount of resources that counties have to spend to provide indigent defense. If we have to implement that, the number that we spend on public safety and for the courts is going to rise substantially. I also would just say that this question of security, as you've already heard, is not a new question whatsoever. The Grays Harbor County Commissioners have been, hello, Representative Appleton. I'd be happy to pause or stop, however you'd like to proceed.
Oh, why don't you finish?
Okay, all right. I'm almost done. And we've spoken with Representative Appleton, and she understands our concerns as well, I think. The issue in Grays Harbor County, the commissioners there are actually being sued by their Superior Court judges because the judges do not feel that the county is spending enough money on security. And the commissioners do feel like they're taking steps to provide security, but the issue really is that the judges don't feel like that's enough. The commissioners feel like it's their responsible as the local legislative authority within the overall parameters of their budget to look at the overall picture and decide what can be spent on security. And they think that's their responsibility. The AG's office is representing the judges there. The state has spent $350,000 already to represent the judges, and the commissioners are having to spend out of their current expense funds resources to defend themselves, which, as Representative Kochmeyer has indicated, is coming out of other finite resources and means they can't spend it on something else. We think there's a better way to resolve these issues than this legislation. And, for example, in wrapping up, I would just point to the bill that was heard in the House Public Safety Committee, House Bill 1653, supported by the Attorney General, and it provides increased penalties for assaults in the courtroom or other court proceedings. So with that, I'd be happy to try and answer any questions and would happily be quiet and let Representative Appleton speak at this point.
Are there any questions? Would you like to hit cleanup, Representative?
Oh. Thank you. I like doing cleanups. I apologize for being late, Mr. Chair. I just let the time get away from me. Anyway, my name is, no, I had constituents in my office. My name is Sherry Appleton. I represent the 23rd Legislative District, which is Kitsap County. We are totally encompassed in Kitsap. This bill is really sort of near and dear to my heart. I think that people put their lives on the line every single day in courtrooms and courthouses. I believe that it is counties and cities' responsibility to provide security for judges, for courtroom personnel, for anybody who is in the courtroom. To me, you put up one of those metal detectors and people pass through, hopefully you catch anything. Obviously, you can't catch somebody's personality, but you can stop a crime before it starts. And, courthouses are emotional places. It's not like, you go in and it's a schoolroom. This is a place where people's lives are totally affected by what happens. And, with the way our mentality is this now in this country, if I remember, in Delaware yesterday, there were 2 court personnel that were shot. This has been going on all over the country. And I think sometimes we should forget about the money and think about the lives of the people who are serving justice.